If you're in your 20s and you're still smoking weed, you need to watch this video. You probably don't want to hear this, but the truth is that weed is just banging you from the behind. It's screwing you over. Like, you're literally throwing your life away by smoking weed in your 20s. And a lot of people probably don't think it's that bad, but it is really that bad. And I'll explain why in this video. I'll explain the science behind it. I'll explain everything behind it. I would say that this is probably like the biggest cheat code to just throw your life away, just to screw yourself over. And trust me, I know, I was smoking in my early 20s too. I was one of the biggest stoners that I've ever known. I was smoking like 4 or 5 blunts a day, but it got to the point where it got so bad that I just needed to quit. And now that I quit, my life is literally 10 times better, 100 times better. My life improved in every way you could think of, every way you could think imaginable. My life improved, my health, my wealth, my fitness, my goals, my clarity, my mental health, everything. Now, why is this such a bad thing to smoke in your 20s? The reason why is because this is the time where you should be building yourself, building your business, building your career, building a life that you're going to be living in the future, building the life that you want for when you're in your 30s. Because the world's not that easy nowadays. The world is actually pretty hard. Look at the job market right now. I'm in Canada, I'm in Ontario, and it is crazy. Like, people cannot get jobs. There's so much competition out there. So the person who's not smoking weed, they're going to be way ahead of you. Now, a lot of people like to lie themselves and say that they're a functional stoner and that they could get away with smoking weed and then doing their job or working on their career. But that's the biggest bullshit I've ever heard in my life. Like, bro, that's really the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. No, you're not a functional stoner. And even if you could get tasks done when you're high, like what everyone could probably do, most people, if they're addicted to weed and they're smoking every single day, they could get tasks done when they're high. But it matters about the productivity. It matters about the outcome of what you're doing, or it matters about the results of what you're doing. You would be 10 times more productive if you weren't high. You would be getting better results if you weren't high. A lot of people like to do their schoolwork when they're high because they just don't have the dopamine in their brain to do the schoolwork when they're sober. I'll explain why the whole functional stoner thing is bullshit later in the video. But anyways, your 20s is the time where you should be actually building yourself. You don't have that much time because your 20s are going to zip by like this. I'm 25 years old right now, and it felt like yesterday when I was 20 years old. Like, think about it. COVID was 5 years ago. 2020 was 5 years ago. It's crazy to think about. But those 5 years just went by super, super, super quick. And if I was smoking weed back in those 5 years, which I think I stopped in 2020. Yeah, 2021, I stopped smoking weed. If I was still smoking weed, then I can't even imagine where I would be at this day. If I quit smoking earlier, then I would probably be 10 times ahead where I am at this point in my life right now. Because all weed does is it kind of stalls you. Like, it keeps you in one place. It doesn't allow you to grow. It kind of stunts your growth. And if you disagree with me, you're just wrong. You're honestly just wrong. So this is the thing. Like, you could get away with smoking weed when you're in school, right? Let's say you're in college or university and you're living on campus, you're living on the dorm or residence or whatever. You could get away with smoking weed there because you always have daddy telling you what to do. You always have someone telling you what to do. You have to get your homework done by this day. You have to get your assignment done by this day. You have to do this. You have to do that. You have to show up to class at this time. So yeah, you could get away with smoking weed in school because it's kind of like, since you have a certain deadline for certain things and there's always telling you someone what to do, then you will do those things even if you're high and even if you're smoking weed. You're probably not going to do them with the same efficiency as someone who doesn't smoke weed. You're probably not going to be doing them as productively or as results oriented as someone who doesn't smoke weed, but you're still going to do them because there's a certain deadline and there's a certain pain point if you don't do those things. If you don't show up to class, then you're going to get kicked out. If you fail your test, then you're going to get kicked out of school, and you're going to waste the thousands and thousands of dollars that you or your parents spent on that school period or semester. So there's a certain pain point that's so high that if you don't do the things that you need to do, then you're screwed. Right? If you don't do the things that you need to do, if you don't do what daddy's telling you to do, then there's a huge pain point. There are huge repercussions. Now, if we take this to the real world, you don't have daddy telling you what to do. You don't have anyone telling you what to do. So I didn't go to college or university. I was thrown into the real world straight when I was 18 years old. Straight out of high school, I was thrown into the real world. So I didn't have anyone telling me what to do. The real world is different because you don't have certain deadlines that you need to meet. You don't have certain people telling you that you need to do this assignment, or there's no end goal to reach. Obviously, the end goal is, wealth, retirement, whatever, that sort of stuff. But there's no end goal to reach. When you're in school, your end goal is graduation, and you think that things are just going to be given to you after you graduate. You think that you're just automatically going to get a job after you graduate. But when you actually do graduate, you realize that the real world actually humbles you. It's freaking hard out here, bro. Like, I'm a barber and I meet hundreds of people every single week. Like, I meet a lot of dudes. I meet a lot of men, and so many of them are struggling. They're falling behind because there's so much competition out there. Think about it. So you think that you're automatically going to get the job that you want after you graduate school, right? But a lot of people don't realize that there are thousands of people applying for the same exact job as you. And there's always going to be that one Chinese guy who's better at you than the thing that you're trying to do or get into. So do you really think that you're gonna beat your competition if you're out here smoking weed and your brain is fried? No, you're not. So that's the thing. In the real world, no one's telling you what to do. You're literally on your own. You're thrown into the ocean, and it's either you sink or swim. Literally, it's either you sink or swim. You're thrown into the ocean. You have no life vest. You need to learn how to swim, or you're screwed. You don't have people telling you what time to wake up in the morning. You don't have people telling you what time you need to be at a certain place. You have to figure that out all by yourself. Now, when you get a job, if you actually do get a job, then yeah, you have people telling you what to do and you have certain deadlines to follow and whatever. But the thing is that there's so many other people in that job that are going to be doing better than you, and you have to compete against those people to get a higher position. And let's say you do get your first job out of university. It's probably just going to be an entry level position. So if it's an entry level position, you still have so much room to grow. But the thing is that if you're too busy smoking weed, you're not going to do the certain things that you need to do to develop your career. A lot of people don't realize what the real world is like, and there's so much competition out there. And if you're stuck smoking weed and your brain is fried every single day, you will fall behind. And that is a fact. You see it with all the stoners who are in their late 20s, maybe even in their 30s. They're kind of behind in life. And even if they do have like a normal job and that sort of stuff, they're not really doing too well, like mentally, if you know what I'm saying. They're not really doing too well mentally. And of course, there's always the exception. Like, you'll find a stoner who has a good job and whatever and all that sort of stuff. But that's the thing. You're not that person. You're not that guy. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, Joe Rogan smokes weed. Snoop Dogg smokes weed. But Joe Rogan, he didn't start smoking weed until he was in his 30s, when he was actually already successful. Snoop Dogg, yeah, like he smokes weed, but that's his job. It's his job to smoke weed. It's his job to just make music. When you're high and you're making music, it just makes it easier. I used to be a producer, so I know. But anyways, you're not those people. And don't pretend and try to act like you are those people and that you're able to become a functional stoner. Because no, that is not true. And like what I said before in this video, the whole functional stoner thing, it's such bullshit. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I'll explain why that's stupid, and the effects that weed has on you and why it's screwing up your brain. So the thing that you need to realize is that when you smoke weed, you are skyrocketing your dopamine receptors. You're releasing so much artificial dopamine in your brain that is not good for you. If you don't know what dopamine is, it's basically known as the motivation chemical, and also it's known as a feel-good chemical. You experience dopamine rushes when you do something that you are anticipating or something that you're motivated to do. So, for example, when you are about to eat like a good food or a dessert or something like that, your brain releases dopamine. When you eat that food, your brain releases dopamine. It's pretty much a feel-good chemical. Everyone knows what dopamine is, so I probably don't have to really explain what it is. But anyways, when you're smoking weed, you are skyrocketing your dopamine levels to an unnatural point. But the thing that happens is your dopamine, it ends up crashing down, but it goes below the natural baseline that it was already at before. And you have to wait for it to kind of go back up again, right? So what you're doing is you're skyrocketing your dopamine, you're crashing it down, because when you smoke and you feel the come down, like you guys know what I'm talking about. It feels like shit. Like you feel groggy, brain foggish, whatever. It crashes below the baseline, and then you have to wait for it to get back to normal. But a lot of people don't wait. They smoke again, and then they skyrocket dopamine again, and then it goes back down below the baseline that it was at before, and it just keeps going down and down and down. And as we all know, what happens if you artificially induce some sort of chemical into your body? Your body stops producing it. It's the same thing as people who take steroids. If you inject steroids into yourself, if you inject testosterone into yourself, it screws up your hormones and your body stops producing natural testosterone because it's already getting too much of it artificially. Same exact thing with serotonin. Same exact thing with different chemicals in your brain, those feel-good chemicals. We just artificially flooding your brain with those chemicals, so it doesn't allow your brain to actually naturally produce them. So what happens? You need weed to produce those chemicals. You need weed to produce dopamine, which is known as the motivation chemical. So think about it. These people who are functional stoners, what they're doing is they're smoking weed so they could get dopamine in their brain, so they literally have the motivation to do the thing that they need to do. So that's why they say that they smoke before they do their tasks. They smoke before work. They smoke before they do their homework, etc. Because they don't have the dopamine in their brain to do the tasks that they need to do because their brain can't produce it naturally. So they need to smoke to actually do the task and get the motivation to do that task. So the people that are smoking, this is why they are so lazy. This is why they have no motivation. This is why they have no ambition in life. This is why they're okay with the present moment. Because they don't have the chemical in their brain to actually go ahead and do the things that they need to do. They don't have any motivation. They have no ambitions because their brain is fried. So when you're smoking weed, what you're doing is you're literally killing your motivation. You're killing your ambition. You're screwing up your brain chemistry. And you're just becoming a lazy bum stoner. If that's the type of person that you are in your 20s, how do you think you're going to pass other people? How do you think you're going to compete for that job that you want? How do you think you're going to start that business and actually obtain financial freedom? You're not. You're going to think about it, but you're not going to do it. Whenever you smoke weed, since you're flooding your brain with dopamine, you're probably going to think about it when you're high, but when it actually comes to doing it, you're not going to do it. When it comes to actually building yourself, or let's say you wanted to build a career or a business, you need energy and focus. Those are the two main things that you need. You need energy and focus. If you don't have those, you are screwed. And what does weed do? It takes away your energy, it takes away your motivation, and it takes away your focus because you have a bunch of brain fog and it screws up your hippocampus, all that sort of stuff. I'm not going to get into the bare bones minimum science. You could watch an Andrew Huberman video for that. But yes, it screws up your brain chemistry. It screws up your hippocampus. It screws up your memory. It screws up so many things in your brain. That's why I'm saying if I stopped smoking weed earlier, then I would be so much further in my career than what I am right now. Because I spent like 5 years just smoking my ambitions away, smoking my life away, until I got to the point where I was basically hitting rock bottom. Like, yo, I can't be doing this anymore. Like, if I actually want to build something, then I need to quit smoking. And like what I said, when I quit smoking, every aspect in my life improved. My wealth, my health, my finances, everything. And that's because I actually had the time and energy and motivation to work on those things and develop those things, which a lot of people who are high, they just don't have that. They just can't, it just doesn't compute in their head that they're able to do things because they don't have the motivation to do things. Think about it. Like a lot of people who are stoners, they'll end up getting a job, and you see it all the time. They'll end up getting a job, but they don't strive for anything further than that job. They become very comfortable in that position that they're in because weed, it also makes the present moment okay. It makes you okay with this current life situation that you're in right now because what you're doing is you're escaping those emotions that are telling you that you need more, you need to you need to work on more things, or it's escaping those emotions that are telling you that this isn't the life that you want to live. That's exactly what happened to me when I was smoking a lot. This was at a point where I was kind of lost. Like I didn't have really much direction. So I was smoking to basically mask or escape those emotions of me knowing that I'm in a place that I don't want to be. So a lot of stoners, they'll work a job, they'll end up just smoking their life away, and then they'll stay in that job for years and years and years, and they won't grow. I see it all the time. You see it so much. And that's the thing about weed. Weed is like a comfort thing. It makes everything okay. As long as you have that blunt at the end of the day, you'll be good. As long as you have that blunt in the morning time, you will be good. It makes you okay with the present moment, which is not a good thing. It makes you not want to strive for more. So if you are currently in school right now, I know I said before that you could get away with smoking when you're in school. Like you could get away with smoking when you're in school because it's true, you can. You don't have any real responsibilities, though your only responsibility is getting your homework done, whatever. You could get away with smoking weed, but the thing that you need to realize, the longer you smoke, the harder it is going to be to quit. You want to get rid of your bad habits as quickly as possible. So it's going to take you a long time after you graduate from school to quit smoking weed. And I see it all the time. There are people who graduated college, university, and they still keep their weed habit 3-4 years later after they graduate. It's the thing that's really hard to quit. Sometimes it takes people years to quit. It takes people years to realize that they need to quit. So that's the thing. You should quit while you're in school right now. So when you're actually thrown into the real world, you're thrown with a fresh mind. You're thrown in as a person who's actually able to compete. Because once you, a lot of people, they'll tell themselves, oh yeah, after school I'll quit, after school I'll quit. But I'm telling you right now that that's not the case. That's not how it works. I told myself that I was gonna quit smoking weed after I was finished high school, and I probably quit for like a month or two, but I ended up I just picked up the habit back up just like this. I started smoking. Yeah, I started smoking regularly again. So that's the thing. Like, you should quit now while you're in school, because if you're thrown into the real world and you're still smoking weed, I'm telling you, you are going to be screwed. If you're constantly relying on weed as a comfort thing, once you actually get thrown into the real world, you're going to rely on it for that comfort as well. So right now, when you're in school, the reason why you're smoking so much weed is because what do you tell yourself? It helps you with your stress and anxiety and all that sort of stuff. So what's going to happen when you don't have it, when you're actually in a situation that's harder than school? The first thing that you're going to go to is the weed, because being in the real world is 10 times harder than being in school. So trust me, you are going to reach for the weed. So you might as well get rid of your addiction now before you get thrown into the real world. Anyways, guys, those are just my thoughts about it. If you like this video, then comment your experience below. I really want to hear people's experience with this. Also, subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more motivational content like this and more things about quitting weed, etc. Like the video as well. Anyways, guys, later.